It's 12 noon on the East Coast, 9 a.m. on the West.
And this is Reprint.
This isn't breaking headlines. This is a second look with context added for perspective.
This is Reprint, edited after the headlines.
All right, good morning, and good morning to the West Coast. Good afternoon to the East Coast. This is the Reprint, and I am your co-host, Crystal Jordan Jennings, and of course, my favorite guy of the morning, my co-host, Victor Flavius, who is the publisher for Lennox and Parker. Welcome. Good morning, Victor.
Good morning. Good morning, Crystal. How are you doing? What's going on?
I am good. I'm not gonna lie, I had a little bit of a rough night yesterday. I've got some stuff going on. You know what? Honestly, and I know a guy probably wouldn't appreciate this, but I have learned that my eyes have an allergy to eye makeup. So I've got to run to the doctor early in just a bit once we finish up here, because I did Fox Atlanta yesterday, and using mascara and eyelash glue and all that has my eyes totally irritated. So useless.
I saw that yesterday.
Yeah, useless.
Great segment. No. It's important because some people have allergies to hair brushes. I know my wife has when it comes to like what do you call it, hairbrush allergies to some
certain type of bristles.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah. So it's important to know what allergies you have, and health is important. Health is very important. Our every day we wake up, we gotta enjoy the sunshine. Get some exercise and go walking. You know what I'm saying? Health is very important. Especially as you get older. Yeah,
I think that the older we get, we develop allergies differently, because I don't remember this happening when I was younger.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes we, our bodies change, and we have to be in tune to all of that. So how was your night?
Say again?
I said, how was your night?
It was fine. Just production, working on this. Again, California is beautiful. It's sunny all the time. I can't complain. The weather is beautiful out here. Atlanta is great too, but I mean, being out here in California, the weather is always 70s, and so
Atlanta's having some difficulty. We're having some cold weather, but it is all good. It is all good. So we're gonna jump into the Reprint news today. Make sure we say hello to all of our listeners. Yeah. Hello to all the listeners, you guys watching us live. And of course, if you are watching this later, make sure that you subscribe. We are on Spotify, we're on Apple Music, and of course, we're here on YouTube as well.
Yes, please do.
Okay. All right. I think we got some bad news yesterday, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, in our community, musician and artist John Forté. I don't know if everybody knows who he is. He was on if you remember, he did a rap verse on Wyclef Jean's Carnival, Staying Alive. He was on a remix. And unfortunately, we got the sad news yesterday. He passed away. John Forté, Wyclef, and Fugees collaborator, dies at 50. We're seeing a lot of our people, especially our entertainers, go so early. He was found unresponsive in his home in Massachusetts, and there was no immediate sign of foul play from the medical examiner. But he leaves behind a wife and 2 kids, and it's very sad news that he's passed at so a young age. We don't know what he had, if he had medical issues, but we do know that 50 is very young to pass away, and it's scary. You never know. You just never know. You hear these, and it's funny because coming up, we only had Tupac and Biggie that passed away. And then all of a sudden you start hearing more and more, younger. They get younger and younger.
Yeah, we had Aaliyah and also Left Eye.
Yeah, but those are tragedies. Those aren't like, what I'm saying? Like, so, I mean, everything's a tragedy, but I'm saying, we in the last 10 years, we've had so many rest in peace. I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
It's sad news, but it's also a wake-up call that we need to again love those close to us, be kind to people around us, live our lives,
Yeah.
enjoy our lives, and do the best we can while we're here. Because
Hmm.
we don't know, But yeah, that's what we
Yeah.
got going on with John Forté. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. I mean, yeah, I was talking to a colleague a couple of days ago about how music is so different now. And I'm saying that because our generation, we appreciate the music, the soundtrack of our generation. The Fugees were definitely a huge, huge part of
Yeah.
that. And just having, they offered something different. And I think that was one of the things that was great about the 90s and early 2000s is that you had music there was so many different types of urban music that it felt more balanced. And I don't
It
know
did.
if it feels as balanced today. But I guess this also is not like my generation. Like the music, most of the people making music are not for my generation. So I don't know if they'll have the type of classic memories with music as we do, but we know that the
Yeah.
Fugees definitely, created timeless classic hits that and not even hits, just cultural
Moments.
moments. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They definitely left their mark in the fabric of hip hop culture.
Hmm.
Not just hip hop, but pop culture as well too. From
Absolutely.
movies to soundtracks, they have done a lot. Yeah, you're right. Our generation did have its time with the music. It's not even. I don't think it's so much this is a young person thing, or this is we don't. It's just the music has changed. We had 50 years of hip hop.
Hmm.
50
Hmm.
years that was dedicated to that. But unfortunately, we've seen a lot of our young men come up, and he was incarcerated for a minute, and he came out, and we haven't heard much from him since then. But just the fact that he contributed to hip hop in the early beginnings of his career, and his young life is it means a lot. It means something to us. So we want to
Absolutely.
send rest in peace and condolences to his family, and yeah.
Yeah. At least we have the music.
Yeah.
I always think that about musicians. You mentioned Biggie and Tupac and different artists, but having their music is like they live on, in perpetuity through what they contributed sonically. So again, we want to just extend our condolences to his family and just our hip hop family,
Yeah.
for this great loss. I think, like you said, sudden deaths are very, very difficult because
It
you don't
is.
have a chance to prepare. It kind of blindsides you. So, man, okay. Well, I know
Yeah.
we got more going on politically. I
Oh
just feel
yeah.
like we're starting off this week, starting off this year, and there's so much going on.
Listen, it's been a roller coaster ride. 2025 January, it's been a roller coaster ride. We every day, every minute is something going on in the news. Especially with Trump, the administration. I mean, we don't get a break. We don't get a break.
I get a break.
Trump says U.S. will revoke citizenship for some naturalized immigrants convicted of fraud. Now, this is geared directly, mainly at Somali immigrants.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. The United States President Donald Trump announced a newly high controversial policy statement that has administration plans to revoke citizenship of natural immigrants who are convicted of defrauding United States citizens. The announcements cited naturalized immigrants from Somalia or anywhere else as targets for the measure, framing the policy around fraud cases. This move reflects a broader push by the administration to take a harder line on immigration and enforce stricter consequences. Now, we know that this administration targets people of color, Black and brown people. We don't, there is no need for this to be happening right now, especially in the Somalian community, because we've seen news where, before when he was running for president, he was saying they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs, and all the stuff he was saying about
Oh
that.
yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. And then he called their country
Just
exactly
trash, garbage.
trash. And yeah. he doesn't say that about Romania. He doesn't say that about, Yugoslavia. He doesn't say that about, he only focuses on Black and brown people.
Mm-hmm.
Venezuela, Mexico, Cuba, Somalia, Africa, all these countries where our melanated people are is where the problem they have. They're trying to weed us out. And so they're trying everything that they can and every legal loophole possible to remove the citizens. And now this is targeted towards naturalized citizens. So what's next? We are next? Are we next?
You know what? I agree with you for the most part, but I have to play devil's advocate just
Okay.
to have a balanced conversation. So to the people like our good friend Edna in the chat that says simply don't do fraud. I know that the Somalian community, specifically the community that he's targeting, there were a lot of Trump supporters prior to the election. I mean, they were very, very vocal. And just quite honestly, there were quite a few immigrant communities that were very, loudly Republican, And so I wonder if there is this an attack on culture and race, or is this attack on things that could potentially take away from our country and the strength of our country? So if we said, the fraud, I definitely understand, I think most people, I talked to you about, I served on a jury here in Walton County, Georgia, where I live. And it reaffirmed to me all over again how unjust the our justice system is, because very difficult to get a jury of your peers in most cases. So I'm just wondering with the situation that we have here, where he's revoking citizenship for those that have committed fraud. Are we seeing any responsibility on the people that may have committed crime?
So while I understand where you're coming from, I think it plays both sides. I think if you can kill two birds with one stone, right? That saying, right? I feel like, yeah, you could do that, but who's really defrauding America? We can talk from the big corporations come all the way down with defrauding, and those guys get a slap on the wrist. And a lot of people are immigrants. They're not like born natural citizens. I mean, Elon Musk. I mean, we could talk about defrauding America from different angles, but I think you pick low-hanging fruit. It's a community that has been, even if you look at I don't want to misquote say her name, but the congresswoman who is Somalian.
Oh,
she's been attacked a lot in the news. So I'm not saying that anybody's like innocent or just don't prosecute or don't go after fraud. Don't do fraud, correct. But when you take away somebody's citizenship, now those countries that they flee from have issues that they deal with. So people come here for those reasons, for protection, for safety. And a lot of people in those communities are law-abiding citizens. But then when you put a target on a community's back, everybody comes after them. We saw the same thing when Trump was saying China, China, China during COVID, and it was putting target on Asian communities back. So we have to be careful when it comes to these type of laws, because laws are written a certain way that it doesn't just affect one person, it could attack a whole group of people. And if we're not careful how the laws are interpreted or addressed, it can blow back on us. So I'm just,
I think I'm conflicted, because I do feel like I grew up in a home where if you do something wrong, you're going to get in trouble. And if you get in trouble, you cannot point your finger at your brother and say, well, he did it too, or he's doing it as well. But I also understand, like I said, that, our system is unjust. The justice system is unjust. So who gets prosecuted is often determined by their financial affluence and, and who they're connected to. So to your point, corporate does a lot of, the pharmaceutical companies, to me, are probably some of the biggest, proponents of fraud that we see. But that still does not negate the fact that if you're caught doing something wrong, it's hard to have a leg to stand on.
Yeah, that's true.
He says, does the punishment fit the crime? And I guess, that's a piece of it. But again, if you're wrong, you're wrong. It's hard to argue when you're wrong. What I'm wondering is, are these Somalians, the ones that were so loudly supportive of President Trump? What are their thoughts on the way this is being handled? Because we've seen it's one thing to look at the news and what the news is reporting, and I think most news platforms are skewed depending on
Right.
the makeup of the platform. But I would just be interested to know the feelings of those communities, because it's one thing to project onto them. You mentioned Venezuela, and a lot of us are outraged by how things have been happening. However, you see people in Venezuela happy,
Yeah.
championing the what President Trump has done. So I'm definitely not excusing any of this behavior, but I do think that we have to take a deeper look to really understand what the nuances are in those communities, and then
Yeah.
understand how it's impacting them overall. But I do think that we have a history of going after and penalizing the less fortunate, and
Yeah.
you have the money and you have the means and you have the family connections. That crime is overlooked, and often they almost want to normalize it.
Yeah. So again, I agree with you, but I have a question too. Why Somalians? Why not just blanket it to anyone that causes fraud?
Mhm.
You know,
Well, okay, but that I have to again play devil's advocate, Victor, because when we go overseas, like we just saw recently, a couple of years ago, with Brittany Griner, and there was another celebrity that was overseas. When you are committing crime in a country that is not yours, you're going to be dealt with a lot harsher.
right. Okay.
When our citizens are in other countries and are caught with a vape pen, you're in prison. And we would say that the punishment doesn't fit the crime, but that's in our eyes. So I do think that when you are a immigrant and you
I don't
commit a
know.
crime, I mean, I'm just putting it out there.
No. But the reason why I say I don't know is because Russia is predominantly white Russian. Like it's predominantly one. America is a melting pot. So China, if I went to China and I got caught with something in China, an American, yeah, you can pinpoint an American
Mhm.
because I'm in China. But when you're in America and there's so many different nationalities, it's a melting pot, and you pinpoint one group of people, not just a group of people out of
Right.
everyone else. You say fraud, then it's like, okay, well, isn't there Chinese doing fraud? Isn't there Russians doing fraud? What about the mob? What about the all these different groups?
Mhm.
And so that's what I'm saying. Like if it was a country over one color, like one group, that's fine. But you're pinpointing a group within
Yeah.
a group of people. So it's like, yeah,
No, I agree. I agree with that. I would say most administrations historically pinpoint Black and brown people.
yeah,
Where
true.
this one is just doing it a lot bolder, and I think
Louder.
louder, and that
Yeah.
is definitely dangerous. But I also think that we have to look at the entire context. So I hate seeing that, and I do think there's always casualties of war. So when when people are doing bad in one area, and then that area is targeted, you're always going to get people that kind of are a casualty of that cause. I don't know. I know there's more. I know there's more that Trump is doing. So let's move on.
Yeah, well, not so much him, but the Portland, Oregon police officers. One of them was reassigned for a comment he made, threatening someone on camera. Pretty much what happened to Nicole Good could happen to you as well. If you commit crime, if you're breaking laws, this could happen to you as well too. So he got reassigned, and we're seeing a lot of mass protests against ICE in this country, and
Mhm.
they're just walking around. I've seen good things too, like restaurants kicking them out, hotels are kicking them out.
Mhm.
You can't do business here.
Mhm.
So, but it's becoming a threat in this country where people are where the ICE people are using their power to push people around and threaten people and scare people.
Yeah.
In our community. So yeah.
I have a dear friend that is Hispanic, and she was just saying it was, scary. And I I'm not sure how we got here, but it is scary, and I do think we have to figure out ways, to be solution driven. But it's interesting that officer was reassigned.
Yeah, well, many times those officers are reassigned, and they're not like fired or whatever. They get moved around. And then if they lose a job, they end up probably working for ICE. Yeah, so they go from one precinct to the next precinct, and that's why you see it happen so many different times because of that issue. But yeah, it's heartbreaking because you go out as a citizen on a daily basis to work, and then you're confronted by ICE. Even the kid that we saw in Target, I don't know if you saw the kid who got picked up in Target, citizen that they grabbed at a Target and beat him up. And we've seen too many cases of ICE police officers or ICE officers or ICE agents attack citizens, and people were like, "Hey, I'm a citizen. Why are you attacking me?" I saw one interview with this one young man who was detained outside. They grabbed him. They asked to show a passport. They kept him for at least an hour. They wanted to scan his face. He said no. Then they came back to do fingerprint. This stuff didn't work. The ICE agent himself was like, "I'm new at this," because this is a lot of these ICE agents take this job, get paid, 50, 60, 70 grand. They have no training. They have no experience. And so you're getting kidnapped off the street. No one knows where you are. They actually told the kid, it was wintertime, said, "Hey, we found nothing on you. You're free to go." He's like, "Well, can you take me back to where you picked me up at, my job?" They're like, "No, you have to walk back."
Oh my God.
So he had his parents come pick him up. I mean, this is a young man devastated. So they're doing this type of stuff. And we've seen this happen in our history, KKK, kidnapping Black and brown people, doing whatever they want to do. And it's just history repeating itself. A lot of people are saying that the Trump administration is moving towards the Nazi regime type of movement that happened in the 30s. And unfortunately, I don't disagree with that rhetoric. I see it happening, and I'm just paying attention and watching to see how it takes off more. And every single day, there's something going on in this country. There's more things going on that we have to pay attention to. Citizens, we have to pay attention to these things.
We do. No, we do. And I think speaking out and having conversation and becoming and educating ourselves on exactly what is happening and how we can work together to create solutions. I wonder, because I see comments saying that ICE agents have less training than local police. First of all, it seems like local police need more training, because like we mentioned Monday, like why is the initial response to shoot to kill, right? Or to threaten? Because that threat was,
it wasn't a threat.
Right. Well, when the officer said it to this recently, the one that was reassigned, saying what happened to her can happen to you, that is a threat to be unalived. So that's a problem.
It is.
I think I'm not aware of, and we can do some more research before we come back on Friday, of what process and procedures are in place for ICE agents when they are interacting and targeting people. They're not, obviously everyone's not a citizen, but I wonder what is the protocol and procedure for that. And because I think, as opposed to just saying this is wrong, yes, I think that it definitely feels extreme, and it definitely feels like we're going backwards as far as the way people are dealing with things. This seems really, really like barbaric. However, I think we need to figure out how do we initiate change. I don't necessarily think that ICE is going to go away, but if we can be loud about the changes that we need to see, I think that could potentially help. I'm not. Yeah. This is all it's
all policy too. I think it's just the way how this administration wants to carry it out. They don't have to do it the way they're doing it. I mean, from what I've heard and read in the news and on different platforms, that during Obama's administration, he did a lot more as far as like immigration, policies. But the way how this administration is going about doing it is what the difference is. It's inhumane. Like we saw the lady who got shot in Minneapolis. The cop, keep saying cop, but the ICE agent had a phone in one hand, videotaping while he was. How are you in imminent threat if if you have a phone in one hand recording it while and walking? So we, yeah, it has to be changed, but it can really be changed from the top. I think from the top, we can come out and protest, but what's protests gonna do on that level? I mean, they're gonna come out with the
Well, I mean, the people have a bigger impact than I think people realize if we're together, right?
together, right? Together, yeah.
There are others being affected besides Black and brown people, right? So
True. Yeah, we saw it. Yeah,
a lot of the people protesting are not Black or brown. So I think
exactly.
making sure that we're standing up and that that voices are heard. I think there can be changes implemented, but I'm also wondering, if the repercussions are now extending beyond Black and brown communities, is it a Black and brown issue? I do want to say that, and we're just, we're trying to present both sides here.
Right.
I have a friend that is Chinese, and he has a very different outlook on a lot of these things, because the United States, we're very lax in there's a lack of respect, and we all know that. I mean, that's part of the problem. Right. Here is that we have gun control. We don't have gun control, and a lot of it is because there's such a relaxed environment, because we do have freedom of speech. We do have freedoms that a lot of countries don't have, that we take for granted. In China, things were very different. If you were outside, for example, during the pandemic, if you're not adhering to what the government says is law, there are swift and harsh consequences for that, right?
True. Yeah.
As a result, you don't have some of the issues that we have here with violence or just backlash against law enforcement.
Right.
I agree that law enforcement has consistently targeted and has a long history of unaliving Black and brown people, specifically men, in an unjust way. However, there are less, the way we approach disrespect towards law enforcement is also very different, right? So, my husband is a military vet. So being married to him, and actually, him being a part of my life, I have a much different outlook now on how we react. If the military is present in other countries, people are very different. People are very
true
to pay attention and to get in line. Where in America, you have people, don't go here, I'm going to do it anyway. You know what I mean? So I think, order, a lot of it is process, and the fact that we just have a different culture. And I think whenever you're trying to shift that culture, there's going to be some backlash.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but I'm not trying to speak up and defend. What I'm saying is we have to look at what's happening and see. No. And when you're trying to change, and we did have a problem with a lot of crime happening here. I think the gun laws are a problem for both immigrants and citizens, right?
They are, yeah, they are.
And I think that we have to, there has to be change. I'm not sure if you can really implement change without there being some, outlying casualties, but I do think that there needs to be more conversation, and we need to know what ICE agents are what is that training like, and what is the ultimate goal? And unfortunately, I do believe that there's a lot of negativity towards race and culture in that overall goal. But I do think, we got to find a happy medium.
Yeah, I agree.
Whew. Well,
I know. A lot to unpack. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know what? I want to take a little bit of a pivot to. We know that we are coming up on the Martin Luther King holiday, and I read a story here that I just wanted to share. I think it's really interesting. I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, so I became aware of the Tulsa race riots and the devastation that took place, to that community in the 20s, right? Mm-hmm. And how basically an entire thriving community of African American entrepreneurs was obliterated, burned to the ground, men hung, children dragged through the streets because what triggered it was a young Black boy looking at a white woman allegedly, and it incited this mob that was looking to destroy this community anyway, because they were jealous and felt that how are these descendants of slaves, and some of them probably slaves, able to come here and start to thrive and be more successful than some of us in the cause. But I didn't realize that was happening all over the world, right? A lot of us that I grew up, I was born in Ohio, grew up in Oklahoma, but I did not realize until moving to Atlanta as an adult that my family had a lot of roots here in Macon, Georgia, as a lot of us do have roots in the South. So it makes sense that there are these stories, these same stories like the Tulsa race riots that have happened everywhere. And we are celebrating, or at least trying to bring attention to one here for the Osby family. It says Fulton County, which is basically Metro Atlanta. Fulton's past harms to Black residents are worth billions. The Fulton County Reparations Task Force has submitted a 636-page report on the cost to Black residents for slavery and discrimination. Elon, but Osby's parents and grandparents were not the kind of people who like to pack up and move. That decision was made for them because they were Black. Owning 60 acres of land was a notable accomplishment for a Black man in 1912. After William Bagley and his wife Ida fled their Forsyth County farm, they became community leaders in the Black enclave of Buckhead. A lot of people are familiar with Buckhead because Buckhead is probably one of the most affluent neighborhoods in Atlanta. And I had no idea. Now, when I got to Atlanta in 2004, 2005, Buckhead was the majority. It was definitely very affluent, mostly white. There were some Blacks in that area, but most of them were connected with entertainment or some type of way. You know, there's the Justin's restaurant, that was Puffy's restaurant, was there in Buckhead. There were all these, celebrities, very celebrity driven, Black celebrity driven, but still very, very much white led, right? So hearing that this Black family had roots in Buckhead was amazing. It says, so William Bagley and his wife moved to Buckhead, became leaders there. He died in 1939. 9 years later, Fulton County offered the Bagley's daughter, Willie Mae, and her husband, Pete Butts, pennies on the dollar to vacate their Buckhead home, says the daughter. Osby parents accepted the offer. The alternative was being forced to move without payment, a fate that did befall some of their Black neighbors. A report created by the Fulton County Reparations Task Force detailed the harms that Fulton County perpetuated through slavery and discrimination against Black residents did not tally one comprehensive amount quantifying the cost, though it said restitution for some practices could be worth billions of dollars today. Nor does it make any recommendations for payments or other actions to repair the damage. These recommendations are the subject of the task force next phase. So it's so interesting to me. It seems like this is a story that continues to happen. For African Americans to be here, to come here as slaves, and then to be able to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, which is what so many politicians, on opposite sides have suggested. And then when that was done, they were forced out. This reminds me of over the holiday, my family and I, my mom and I, my cousins went to go see Sarah's Oil, and hearing that Black and Indian children that own land were hunted down like animals, so that to kill them, to capture that land, because we know land is the only commodity that cannot be cannot be replenished. Like, there's only so much land. So taking this land, and we also look at there were no bootstraps. We pulled ourselves up without the bootstrap, just pulled ourselves up, just tenacity, and then that was taken. But hearing that Buckhead, I think personally, and I mean, this is just my personal opinion, I think the reason that there's so much happening is because there's an outcry of karma, has an outcry of, when you capture something in a way that's unjust, it never will work. And so now we see, after 2020, Buckhead has one of the highest crime rates in this city, in the Atlanta metro. And I think if you look at this full circle back to that, those lands were taken from people unjustly. And
of course,
and it's going to have that, there's going to be an effect. It may not be for that generation, but it could come later. I'm interested to see what this reparations task force will do. I learned when I was working with one of the coalitions that is promoting, reparations. One of the reasons they said that reparations were not able to be, they couldn't really actually figure out how reparations could work, and it wasn't on a platform, is because there's no way to really. A lot of us cannot trace our history back to where we those records were lost somehow. So how would you know who gets what? Well, in this case, it's very clear. You have records
Right.
showing
Yeah.
people own this land in Buckhead. 60 acres is extremely valuable at this point. So to own that land, and they can see the family legally had it and refuse to provide reparations, is to me another act of racial oppression, because
It's fraud.
it's fraud. It is fraud.
Let's get them out of here.
You're right. It's fraud. It is fraud.
If I could interject a little bit. So the whole reparations concept to me is still kind of mind-boggling, because to me, first of all, America has not apologized for its position in slavery, Jim Crow, just everything. It gave reparations was paid to the victims of Holocaust survivors. Reparations were paid to the Asian community when they brought them here during Vietnam, during World War II. Reparations were paid to the indigenous people in most cases, with like land being given back and casinos. But for some reason, Black or brown people, they have to set up these what's that called? You mentioned not a board, but a
coalition or a task force.
A task force to investigate and how we're gonna pay back and what do we owe. If America pays back Black or brown people, it will bankrupt this country. That's just a straight up. They owe us trillions of dollars. Never mind, all the unpaid labor, all the Jim Crow era stuff, the redlining, the redistricting. All of we see it today with, even when it comes down to the political schemes of redistricting areas, and Texas adding on 5 more seats, and then California saying, hey, wait a minute, we're going to add more because that's unfair. All these things it goes back to the same thing. America is trying to figure out, when I say America, I don't mean the people, I mean the government, trying to figure out ways around it instead of apologizing and dealing with it head on. Yeah, it's a little bit more difficult to determine who gets what based upon lineage, but trust me, they have records. They know who and where and what. And even just to say, hey, this is let's make this a day or a year or era of healing where we apologize to Black and brown people. No, we have the vice president getting on saying that white people don't have to apologize anymore for being white, when they never had to in the first place. Even white people get on and say, wait, apologize for what? We never did it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've heard that. And I saw a quote from Elon Musk, who we know is a friend of the administration, saying that, white men should not have to be afraid, I think all of that, what I term as white guilt, and the rage against white guilt, it would have been taken care of if they had done something to apologize and to make this right. Now, I will say the Jewish community and the Native American community, Jewish community kind of has their own set of rules, but the Native American community, which I am also a part of through, my on my father's side very closely, like that, their story is not the reparations that they were given. It was still unjust and unfair.
Oh yeah, I know that. But what I'm saying is they still were recognized. Is what I'm saying. To some inkling.
But I think they were recognized because it was a easier. The way that they oppressed that. Okay, we're going to give you this. We're going to take everything else from you. They still raped and pillaged.
Of course, yeah.
They were able to give them. But you're right. It would do that. But I think until something is done, there's going to be this unrest. And
of course.
Cannot, karma cannot be, you can't outrun it, and it doesn't go away. So I do think that part of what's happening here is just the cumulative impact of all this being done wrong. You see how these countries are eventually, these areas are that were taken and were stripped of. It's just not it's going to end up, we don't know what the end story is going to be, but we see that a lot of it is coming out to where we're having issues. There are issues there.
And what does the great poet says, and still I rise.
And still, it's right. It does. I know this sounds really cheesy, but it does also remind me of how tenacious my race is, and the blood in me is like, when you see it, when you see and really have a full grasp of what has been overcome and how we still continue to push forward, and you see that more business owners, African American women are the highest rate of business owners,
but lowest paid.
In spite of all that's been done, I think that it gives you a sense of pride. But I do think it's sad, and it lets you know how much of the country is run on hypocrisy, and that's I think that applies all around the board.
Which is why community is very important. Building a community and having a close-knit family and community, supporting our businesses, supporting our magazines, supporting our local stores, supporting our artists, supporting our anything that we have, we should be supporting each other, because we contribute a lot to this economy, but we get nothing back in return.
Yeah, I think when you look at that, when you see, that's the difference, because I hear Black people. This is a photo of the Osby family.
Beautiful.
At that time, but when you see the people say, and this is one of the daughters.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah. So when you see those photos, I hear people all the time today say that African American people don't stick together, and I can understand. I probably said that myself in frustration, as a business owner before. But when you look back at those at the history, that's not true. That's not true. We did stick together, and we built these communities, and we laid foundation for businesses, and so many times that was stripped from us. And so I think we have to not give in to the narrative that's being fed to us, and realize that is not our instinctive nature. Is to come together. It is to build together.
Right.
Those communities were infiltrated, destroyed, and that shook up the foundation. I know growing up in Tulsa, where there was this rich history, there were so many people, their families, you could feel this tiredness, this resentment, of everything that they once owned being stripped from them, and not being able to pass anything down to their children, to where there was this almost like a tiredness, when we got there in the early 80s. So I think that if nothing else, I want to say that we as African Americans should reject the narrative that is given to us about our own people. I think the result that we see today is because of constantly being thwarted. As soon as you start to move forward and unity is recognized, then the forces that come and destroy it. And so of course there's frustration. Of course there's, people scatter. When you destroy something, everyone scatters, and then kind of stick to their own. So I just think that we have to remember as we move towards MLK weekend, that a lot of the things that we believe about ourselves are not true. And yes, the dividing and conquering has worked, but more importantly than even physically, it's the mental impact of divide and conquer. If we can turn them against one another, they won't come together. They won't come together, and they won't pool their resources, and they won't do that. But that's not our instinctive nature. I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's true. You're right.
Yeah, definitely important. Speaking of, I think we need something positive. We always want to end
please.
on a positive note. Yes, I had the honor of talking with the one and only Miss Iyanla Vanzant. And when you said that the poet, that line from Maya Angelou's "Still I Rise,"
Still I Rise.
Miss Iyanla Vanzant is probably the closest thing that we have to that type of presence here.
Yes.
And so she is returning to OWN with a new series that basically is I guess it's kind of a reboot of Iyanla Fix My Life. It's
right.
called By the Fix. But as I chatted with her, it was interesting because I did have the privilege of being one of the people that went on the show. So I experienced her in real time. And what I can say is that she is definitely gifted. And, aside from having all these this education behind her to do what she does. She also has a spiritual instinct that is able to see and provide clarity to what is motivating the trauma that so many people are going through.
Right.
So this series, I believe there's 12 episodes, and they are basically going inside and kind of breaking down these shows that she did that all dealt with some form of trauma. I talked with her specifically about this new trend that we see with children and parents. So many adult children are deciding to alienate and quote unquote divorce their parents. I don't.
Oh, really? Wow.
And Oprah Winfrey actually did a podcast. It's been a very prevalent thing. I didn't realize that it was going around, but I've heard, I know many people very close to me that the children have decided that they don't want to have interaction with the parent. And I asked her, with the show coming back, she left with Fix My Life 5 years ago during 2020, I think was the last season. And since then, I believe that we just have not gone back to a point of relationships across the board seem more fractured than ever. I think social media is a big piece of that. We were all sitting down during 2020. Everyone developed a voice, online and created social media platforms.
They did.
A lot of people are speaking out of their hurt. And so you see children having these conversations, adult children specifically, having these conversations about why it's not healthy. They want to set boundaries by alienating their parents, if the parent doesn't do what they do. And so she just gave some enlightenment. And I know we have more on the site. If you want to hear more from the interview with Elon Van Zandt, you can visit lennoxandparker.com. But she said that setting boundaries is a healthy practice. It's not the same thing as building a wall. And often with relationship, if we don't have the tools to deal with fractures, we just want to abandon it. But that's not a healthy way of dealing with it. And she said it's not possible at all. It's impossible spiritually to divorce yourself from your parent because their DNA lives in you. Their blood is in you. And so even if you do attempt to do that, eventually, she said, don't be surprised when that DNA within you stands up to be recognized. And she said that, we need to look at boundaries as healthy ways of communicating, right? When you put up a wall or block or cancel, that is a negative way.
Right.
And so I just think that I'm really happy the show is coming back, because I remember water cooler conversations when the show first started, where people are saying, did you watch that? Because you're going to see so many things that either replicate what you've dealt with or something and it's an opportunity for healing. So the premiere is Saturday, the 17th, January 17th on the OWN network at 8 p.m. Iyanla's Inside the Fix. I definitely think it's worth taking a look at with everything.
I got a question for you.
Yes.
How does that work? At what age do they divorce their parents or separate? I mean, how does that work? Do the parents still take care of them? I mean,
No, these are adult children. So these are adult children that have decided that they are not in agreement with the way the parents raised them, or to Ms. Van Zandt said that many of them have judged their parents. And I know, you and I have talked, we're both parents of, adult children.
Right.
And, there's no handbook for parenting, and see what's happened is when we were growing up, we were not told that we know more than our parents. We were not told that we don't have to listen to them. But now people are using this rhetoric that they hear on social media that is taken from therapy, and people who actually have degrees are the ones that are supposed to be talking about narcissistic traits or people being triggered or people trauma bonding. But people hear those words, those buzzwords, and they assign it to something that they did not like, Right. My father gave me a spanking when I didn't do so. I'm triggered by this, and so it's very dangerous for people to be kind of weaponizing these rhetorical therapy terms against situations without the insight, without the education, without the background.
That's
what it is. Adult children that have decided that they have an issue with their parents. And she's not saying that the parents were always right. What she's saying is that should not be the first line of defense to your parents from their grandchildren. I see there was a wonderful episode on Oprah's podcast where there were children adult children that had children of their own, did not want their parents involved with raising their grandchildren. And that causes a lot of hurt. But to her point, I don't think anyone can address relationship or behavior breakdown like Miss Iyanla Van Sant. That DNA and that blood is in you, you know, and I know, you know, from having children, my children, I see my ex-husband in them. I'm sure he sees me, you know, in them. That can't be raised. You can break up, you can stay away from the person. My father did not raise me, but I still have traits of my father.
Of course.
That's the line that's in me. So just her is amazing. And I think definitely would recommend people to tune in to the OWN Network on Saturday for some healing.
Healing is very important, especially in our community. Everybody needs to be healed. I mean, parents need to be healed. Kids need to be healed. I mean, healing is so important. And spiritual healing, physical healing.
It's an ongoing, and that's the point I want to make. She's like, it's a journey. So there's not such thing as, oh, I had this breakthrough and now I'm done.
I'm done.
No. You never stop. She actually said that she's grown so much since doing the show, and you know, so I think it's being open to constantly learning and being open to constantly realizing that you may not know everything and you can learn something new. So definitely worth tuning in for.
Yeah, our lives have so many layers to it. You know, you think about from childhood to adulthood, what you experience with your parents and your friends, and then you add relationships to that, and then you add financials to that, then you add, so there's so many different layers of what we think and what we do that's in us. And because for me, like, I know a lot of times I'm going. And it's only so often you stop and say, hey, wait a minute, I did that back in, wow, I forgot when I was 10 that this happened to me, or 12 this happened. So we have so much to unpack. And I mean, raising kids, there's no handbook for be parents. There's no handbook to being in anything. There's no handbooks. And we live by example from our parents. So if our parents didn't have enough information to give to us, we took what they gave us and we ran with that. Now, these kids today have all the information in the world besides their parents. And a lot of times social media and the internet takes over and people self-diagnose themselves and say, hey, mom talked to me too loud. So Johnny over here, mom talked loud, and this is what happened to him. So this is, you know, we can't do that. We have to look at ourselves on a one-by-one basis and, you know, deal with the issues head on. But that's a good series to look into. Absolutely. You say it comes on, when does it come on again? It
comes on Saturday, January 17th, 8 p.m. on OWN. It's great that it is premiering during MLK weekend.
Yeah, definitely check that out.
Yeah. Well, we will be back on Friday. This has been a great conversation. Please leave comments or share this. As I said, you can find the reprint on Spotify and Apple Music or wherever you listen to podcasts. Or, of course, you can hang out with us here on YouTube. We will be back. Victor, you got any plans between now and Friday?
Work. No plans. No, just keep on doing what we're doing right here. You know,
doing what we're doing. We will see you guys right back here Friday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Western. It's been the reprint. Thank you guys for hanging out with us, and we'll
thank you guys.
It's 12 noon on the East Coast, 9 a.m. on the West.
And this is Reprint.
This isn't breaking headlines. This is a second look with context added for perspective.
This is Reprint, edited after the headlines.